Stranger Things 5 Part 1 was awesome, but the best part, Max's soul isn't lost in the Upside Down. She's alive, just not in her own body. Before we dive into where she is and what this means, we need to back up and explain how we even found out. From Holly's imaginary friend to mysterious music and Vecna's panic caves, let's break it all down. Holly Wheeler is basically Vecna's main character this season, exactly like we predicted because of the leaked title. Suddenly, she's an avid reader now, deep diving into A Wrinkle in Time, which is cute until she starts hanging out with an imaginary friend she calls Mr. Whatsit. Now, quick book refresher. Mrs. Whatsit in A Wrinkle in Time is this celestial hat-loving being who helps kids literally hop planets to save their dad. In Stranger Things, Mr. Whatsit is actually Vecna. Vecna in Henry form, that is, wearing his 50s little brown suit like he's running for mayor. He's invisible to everyone else and befriends Holly, tells her monsters are trying to hunt her, and very conveniently forgets the tiny detail that he's the reason the monsters even have her address. And here's that missing connection. Mrs. Whatsit guides kids to planets. Vecna can guide to another dimension. One is a cosmic mentor, the other is a walking red flag. Same job description, wildly different employee evaluations. Then we get the moment we knew was coming thanks to the leaked episode title, the disappearance of Holly Wheeler. A Demogorgon Kool-Aid Man's into the Wheeler house and absolutely wrecks Mrs. Wheeler, injures Mr. Wheeler, grabs Holly and dives into a self-opening gate. We're imagining that Vecna hooks Holly up to the demo tube just like Will at the beginning of the episode. Will later gets a view on Holly's location, and even though we never actually see the Demogorgon hand her off or anything else that happens in between, we know now that Holly is connected to the tube. Meanwhile, Holly is stuck in Vecna's mindscape, fully convinced that brown suit Henry is taking her on a little field trip to a 1950s version of Hawkins. He leads her straight to the Creel house, except this one is the freshly moved in, fully furnished edition that the Creels would have had back in the day. Now, Henry is out here insisting that this whole kidnapping situation is actually him saving Holly from monsters. And honestly, after getting yeeted across her own room by a Demogorgon, it makes sense. He promised to bring her family after a quick run for some kids. One of the kids he name drops is Derek from Holly's school, who Holly immediately clocks as a known bully. Vecna, trying to recruit like this is summer camp signups, promises he'll kick Derek out if he causes problems. Very reassuring. Nothing says protector like curating your hostage list. While Henry steps away, which is almost certainly code for evil errands, Holly is left alone in the Creel house with one rule: do not go into the woods. Amazing. Telling a kid not to go somewhere is basically the express lane to them doing exactly that. To keep her entertained, he lets her loose in the house, and she takes over what appears to be Alice's old room, Henry's sister, and Holly immediately starts living her best 1950s princess life. She's putting on fancy dresses from the closet, blasting some Tiffany on the radio, baking cakes, watching TV, full montage moment. But Holly also wanders into Henry's room. There she finds his Boy Scout box, complete with his Boy Scout gear. She pockets his handkerchief and his pocket telescope, because why not commit a little interdimensional theft? Holly gets a sudden doorbell ring, which is already suspicious because this is Vecna's 1950s Barbie dream house. She assumes it's Derek, the school bully Henry promised would be arriving in batch 1 of his weird rescue plan. Naturally, Holly is too scared to open the door. When she finally does open it, no one is there. But there's something in the mailbox, inside a handwritten letter from Henry telling her to meet him at the rocks, and he even leaves her a map and a compass. This absolutely fries Holly's brain because Henry just told her never to go into the woods, and the map straight up tells her to march right past those woods like it's no big deal. So now she's confused, she's stressed. What Holly doesn't know is that she's been watched the entire time, and when she finally reaches the rocks, she sees a figure waiting for her. Holly assumes it's a villain and books it, but it's none other than Max Mayfield, which immediately raises the question, what in the Stranger Things multiverse is happening, and where has Max been the whole time? After 11 revived her, Max didn't wake up in a hospital bed like a normal person. No, she got pulled into an unfamiliar place, the Rainbow Room. Except this Rainbow Room is not in the lab and is covered in dead lab kids like some kind of group project gone wrong. It doesn't take long for her to realize she's not just anywhere. She's inside a memory, a Vecna memory. This mindscape that Holly and Max are stuck in is basically Henry's memory hoarder closet times 1,000. We're talking hundreds, maybe thousands of his memories. Max literally has to walk through all of them poking around for an exit and ends up in a school in 1959. Then she hears it running up that hill because Lucas has been playing Kate Bush for her on a boombox in the hospital. And of course, she follows the music. And before you go, wait, A soul can just hang out in someone's brain? Remember, Henry literally told us this in season 4. When Eleven first fights Vecna and sends him to the Upside Down, she cries over the dead lab kids, and Henry goes, "Nah, they're not dead. I have them in my head." At the time, he just seemed like a psychopath that was lost to the cause, but now it makes total sense, which also begs the question, are the dead souls lurking in there too? This is a side eye to you, Eddie. Back to Max. She stumbles on the memory of the day she dies. Somehow she finds the red mindscape, the same exit she used to escape Vecna in season 4. And because Kate Bush is playing, a proper exit pops up, straight out of last season's playbook. But of course the song gets abruptly stopped. Lucas rewinds it, and of course Vecna shows up, in Henry form, chasing Max through memory after memory. She finally ducks into some caves, and Vecna stands at the entrance, scared out of his mind. And then he just leaves because he's not going into those caves even if you paid him. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Broadway show of Stranger Things lore, the first shadow conical connection. Max makes it to Henry's cave memories, which is the trauma playground of his childhood. According to the Broadway show, yes, apparently this counts as canon, Brenner was running Nevada experiments, trying to send someone to Dimension X. His goal? To duplicate the process that his dad went through in the 1940s. See, Brenner's father was part of the Philadelphia experiment, which somehow also sent it to Dimension X. Everyone on board died due to Demogorgons except his dad, who came back with powers. And yes, he was apparently possessed by the Mind Flayer. So fast forward to Nevada. Brenner wants to harness those same powers. A Soviet spy steals what seems to be the Mind Flayer particles and hides them in some caves. Little Henry, probably a Boy Scout at the time and doing typical Boy Scout stuff with his spyglass, happens to be exploring nearby. We don't get all the juicy specifics, but the gist is the particles get loose and take over Henry, and they transport him to another dimension for 12 hours. When Henry comes back, he has powers, but also a perpetual inner struggle with the Mind Flayer, constantly whispering, manipulating, and testing him. Interestingly, Vecna still seems afraid, even now. Yup, even after fully embracing the Mind Flayer, there's something about those caves that triggers deep trauma. This tells us that a part of Vecna is still terrified of the Mind Flayer and whatever happened to him there. Not only does that show signs of humanity, it shows signs that the Mind Flayer is probably fully in control and not necessarily Henry. Meanwhile, Max has decided these caves are perfect and basically moves in. She's been living there ever since, hiding, plotting, and surviving in Henry's memory cave like a total boss. So what does this actually say about the characters and Stranger Things lore in general? Let's break it down. First off, it's important to point out there's more than one version of Henry in play, and I strongly suspect that this reflects more than one version of Vecna. Holly meets Henry in the 1950s, in a brown suit, glasses, hat, the kind of guy who's thoughtful, occasionally sinister, but mostly approachable. Meanwhile, Max meets Henry in his white orderly outfit, the one he wore in the lab with Eleven. And of course, he casually transforms his hand into the Vecna hand while the rest of him stays human. I don't think that's a coincidence. This seems to be a different facet of Henry's persona. While there's some villainy here, he also does things that actively work against his ultimate villain goals. Case in point, Henry leaves Holly with a radio and a copy of Tiffany's cassette album. Remember what we learned from Max? Favorite music is basically the escape key out of his mindscape. And why does Henry leave her the literal key to freedom? And why does he leave it lying in the mailbox instead of handing it directly to her? Because cleverly, it sets up the mailbox role for later. Max leaves a letter in the mailbox, pretending to be Henry, that Holly cannot possibly miss. It's like Henry is playing chess with multiple pieces at once, and some of those moves actually help the heroes. Okay, here's where things get interesting. There's a possible redemption story bubbling just beneath the surface, or at the very least, a sign that Henry's humanity still exists, despite everything he's done and despite his human form being fried to death in season 4. Max is going to have to find the mindscape again, probably with Running Up That Hill blasting in the background. The tricky part, she says it took her ages to find it the first time. Will she be able to find it again? Hopefully, because she also mentions having a plan that will take time. She even sends Holly back to the Creel house to avoid raising suspicions with Henry. I suspect that Holly will serve as a distraction for Henry while Max is at work. Now, a little foreshadowing for Holly comes through Mike. Of course, when Holly starts talking about Mr. What's-It, everyone assumes it's just an imaginary friend for an unusually old girl. But she confides in Mike that this man is actually protecting her from monsters in Hawkins. And of course, nothing clicks for Mike that this might be Upside Down related. But here's the fun part. He uses D&D to ease her mind. He gives her a game piece, a cleric, and tells her that she, Holly the Heroic, can open portals between worlds, among a bunch of other awesome qualities. This is probably foreshadowing Holly's future ability to move between dimensions, potentially opening gates herself as a newly acquired power. Considering there's an episode in part 2 of season 5 called Escape of Camazotz, it looks like Max and Holly's plan is actually going to work. Camazotz is the world in A Wrinkle in Time run by an evil disembodied villain named It, and that's where Meg's dad has been kept hostage. And honestly, Holly is probably going to have a major role in this, especially based on what we learned from Will's time in the Upside Down. Remember the first 5 minutes of the season? Will is connected to the Upside Down via Vecna's tube during his first visit. What this tube does is that it introduces Mind Flayer particles to the host. And introducing Mind Flayer particles is how Vecna got his powers. And in the finale of episode 4, we see that Will didn't have full control of his powers because he was living in fear of who he truly was. Enter Robin's pep talk. She encourages Will to embrace himself, accept who he is, and unlock his full potential. Then Vecna shows up in full form, taunting him that he was chosen because he was weak and easy to break. That push forces Will into full power mode, and suddenly he's controlling 3 Demogorgons at once, snapping their bones like Vecna. Now, Will's powers are different from Eleven's on purpose. They develop differently. They're more similar to Vecna's powers for that reason, and here's the twist. During all of this, Holly is still connected to the same tube, which means she is likely introduced to Mind Flayer particles in the process. This suggests that even after she leaves the mindscape, she's going to have powers of her own. My prediction? She's going to be able to open gates, maybe even similar to ones the Demogorgons use, letting the party pop in and out of the Upside Down like it's nothing. This could change the game entirely. And if you factor in the overload of Easter eggs, it feels like the show is foreshadowing Holly's powers at every turn. There are some seriously deep Alice in Wonderland vibes here. Holly goes through Henry's sister's clothes, her name is actually Alice, and picks out an Alice-inspired dress. Then she's whisked away to another world by Henry, who conveniently carries a pocket watch, just like the White Rabbit, leading Alice down the rabbit hole. Meanwhile, Max is channeling some Mad Hatter energy with her tattered hair and unusual 50s outfit. There's even a teapot in her lair and a poster of Alice in Wonderland in Alice's room. And of course, what does Alice do in the story? She travels to another world. The connections get even wilder when you think about Meg from A Wrinkle in Time, who uses concentration and belief to travel to other worlds via the Tesseract, a concept explicitly referenced by the science teacher in Stranger Things. Put it all together and it's clear. Holly's story is all about interdimensional travel, cleverly hinted at through these literary and pop culture nods. And that's our deep dive into Holly, Max, and Henry. All the mind-bending madness of season 5 so far. From mindscapes to Demogorgons, brown suits to cleric powers, it's safe to say Stranger Things is officially playing chess on a multiverse board, and we're all just trying to keep up. If you loved hearing about all these theories, smash that like button, subscribe for more breakdowns, and drop a comment with your craziest season 5 prediction. Do you think Holly is about to become the ultimate gatekeeper, or is Vecna about to flip on the Mind Flayer? And hey, don't forget to share this with your fellow Stranger Things friends, because let's be honest, discussing mindscapes and magical cassettes is way more fun with friends. Stay weird, stay spooky, and I'll see you in the Upside Down.